Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, providing more than 41,000 jobs in the production of wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details at choosewood.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. It's been exactly 1 month since we did a whole show dedicated to 314 Day, which, as a reminder, is not just a day, but rather a period in March when folks love on all things St. Louis, especially what's unique to it. The show included notes on how St. Louisans sound. Since then, we've seen several comments about how I and other St. Louis on the Air team members pronounce words and local street names. So we figured it's time to address the matter with headphones on. And who better to do that than native St. Louisan Tru Wag. Born Brandon Wagner, Tru Wag is a comedian and content creator who frequently makes TikTok videos about the St. Louis accent most common in Black communities in the STL area. And he spotlights it because he feels St. Louis deserves to be proud of something that is uniquely ours. Here to give and have a few words over that is none other than Tru Wag himself. Wag, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Have you heard a little bit of it?
Yes. Yeah. I've been listening for you. I hear it.
So let's take a step back
Yes.
before the time you started blowing up on social media.
Uh-huh.
Where does your St. Louis accent come from? That is, where in the region are you from, and where do you reside now?
Yeah, so I grew up I was born on North City, St. Louis. So a lot of like the Kings Highway, Natural Bridge area, all of that. I was growing up there. So I guess when I was 10 or 11, I moved to University City, which is where I reside now. So it's like a little bit of mixture of both, which is, University City is like the melting pot of St. Louis.
Yeah.
So I kind of got a lot of experiences from a lot of different people. So I've heard all the accents.
Okay. Now, a big part of this conversation about accents started around the time we were preparing for our 314 Day show last month, and then continued when I and the team would get notes about whether or not we pronounced something, quote unquote, wrong.
Right. St. Louis wrong.
So when did you realize that St. Louis has a distinct sound?
It would be whenever I traveled outside of the city.
Okay.
I believe St. Louis people don't know they have an accent until they leave, and then they realize, or until they experience somebody from out of town, and then they hear their accent or how they speak, and they're like, no, that's not how a St. Louis person would say that. So, once I left the city and everybody was getting on my head about how I spoke, that's when I realized.
Was it particularly hard, like people getting on you in certain places?
Yeah, I remember being on a cruise ship in the Bahamas. And this was the first time I believe I ever left the country.
Okay.
I think so. But on that cruise ship, it was a lot of different backgrounds on the ship. So I believe it was someone from New York heard me say stare, like to stare at someone.
Okay.
And they heard me say, I just want to stare at it. And they would ask me what I say. And I repeated it, and they thought I was saying to stare something up. So that was the first time I ever got caught off guard, and they really went in on me then.
Oh. Well, because, New Yorkers don't have any kind of accent at all.
No, it's just strong verbiage. I don't know if they have some accent, but it's very aggressive.
Sure. Now, you've probably noticed by now that I have a distinct accent myself.
Yes.
I moved here from Los Angeles, but I spent much of my childhood in Canada, and specifically in southern Ontario. So I say words with a short A, like A and not A.
Yes.
In fact, when my son was in first grade just last year, his teacher sent me a note of concern because he was saying the word B-A-G wrong. That is the way that I do, right? So I had to tell her, no, that's the way he says it because I'm Canadian. And, I think we could do a whole show about street names and how they're pronounced here, so we won't go too far down that path.
Yeah, it'd be a whole thing, yeah.
But how would you, Wag, describe the St. Louis accent that you have and make content around?
It's really, we love the strong R. We put we exaggerate the R in every word. So if it's let's see, to hear or we hear. So, and it's like turn the E into a U a little bit. So I believe it's just the exaggeration of the R and like the slur, and we just carry our words and throw them all together.
Okay. So now that we've kind of explained some of our sounds, it's time for a game.
Yes, yes.
Right. To approximate your accent and word of the day challenges on TikTok, we're going to go through a few words that demonstrate that distinct sound. So you're going to give me hints as to what the word is, and then I'm going to try to guess them.
Yes.
Saying the words how I would typically say them. And then you'll say the word as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's try the first one. The hint would be this word, it's usually made up of wood, and you can walk on it, especially near a beach. They have a popular one in Chicago and in Santa Monica.
Pier.
Yes, yes. Okay, but that's really, that is very clear. Like,
How do you say
so
it?
I would say a pier. So like it's just, instead of using that I and E, I instead of like breaking them apart, I put them all together, and it's just a purr.
Okay. Well, that sounds like more fun, to be honest with you. All right, let's do the second word.
Yes. When someone sneaks up on you and scares you, you feel...
Fear.
Yes, but fur. But yeah, fear is... That doesn't feel like too much to even try to say fur. It just comes out so naturally. It's just so short and concise. Fur.
Running away with the way that you sounds also better. All right, number 3.
Let's try this one. This thing is attracted to metal. You use them to decorate your refrigerator.
Magnet.
Oh, that's new. I've never heard it be pronounced that way. That's new. So it's like a strong A instead of like...
like M-A...
Magnet.
Magnet?
Wow.
Or, bagel.
So, yeah,
Would you
I guess...
say bagel?
No. That's a good point. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, magnet. That's new. Okay, let's try the next one. This thing is thin, and you can find them inside of the cords, or another word of a cord.
Oh, a wire.
Yeah, okay. So we would say wire. Wire. And I don't even know how that even I don't even know how we get there, but wire just feels so much better
it is
than
really
wire.
Those R's.
Yes, if a R is in a word, we'll mess that up.
Okay. Is there one maybe that does not have the R? Among the words that you've prepared?
Not really.
No?
Not really. So,
Okay.
it's really that R that really gets us, especially if
that's
it's
the
closer
distinctive thing.
to the middle of the word.
No, I've lived... First of all, thank you for playing.
No problem. No problem. Thank you.
I've lived a bunch of places in the States and spent 2.5 years living in Seoul, Korea. And then I mentioned, my childhood in Canada. So I appreciate sort of the different sounds that many regions have. And I specify Seoul because there are many different regional accents in Korea.
Wow.
So it's, not everybody's going to sound the same. St. Louis is the place I've lived the longest in my life.
Okay.
And I have many loved ones here who are from all over the region. And many of those friends, they have that St. Louis sound that you're making content around. One of the things that has come up with these friends is code switching.
Yes.
So for those who need a bit of an explanation about what that is. It's basically when people adjust how they speak depending on context or environment.
Yes.
And it's most noticeable when you see a person go from a space where they feel comfortable and kind of more casual. You can hear that in their speech. To one where maybe they don't see folks who look or sound the way they do. So I have my own thoughts about code switching, but I wanted to ask yours about, quote, speaking properly or saying things correctly.
It's, I don't know. I find myself doing it often. I'm in a lot of spaces where I I want to put myself in a lot of spaces where I don't speak the way I normally speak. So when I'm speaking to someone who may speak differently than I do, I naturally code switch without me knowing it. But it makes my voice become higher. Like
Sure.
Naturally, I just talk higher because I'm attempting to code switch.
Yeah.
But how I'm speaking now wouldn't be how I naturally speak when I'm amongst friends or something like that. But I believe it's necessary. I think you have to. It's a good skill.
Okay. And it's interesting that you bring up the change in the, I don't know if it's the timbre of the voice. When I speak Korean, that definitely happens.
Yeah.
It's like a different register.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know why it comes out that way, but you can tell that I am attempting.
Now, earlier you said that if an R is in the word, that you might mess that up.
For sure.
But is it really messing it up?
No, 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 not at all. It's not messing it up, but like I know it could possibly be misunderstood if I am saying it just with my regular voice.
Now, when we opened this segment, we started with a Chingy song,
Yes.
and it's right there, right?
Right.
So, if I were to start saying there and war and per, would that get me in trouble? Like,
Yes, I mean, well, I wouldn't say necessarily in trouble, but it is appropriating at that time. Then you just gotta realize what you are doing. I mean, being conscious of it kind of helps, but if you're just ignorantly attempting, then it becomes a problem.
So I'm speaking now with Tru Wag, or Brandon
Yes.
Wagner, who's a comedian and content creator who makes TikTok videos about the St. Louis accent. So, I like to think that I take criticism and praise pretty well.
Yeah.
And I've only been on air here for, a few months. I started back in December.
Great.
If you were me, what would you say to folks who are trying to correct my accent?
Cut you some slack. Because, I mean, especially being from St. Louis, it is hard to naturally speak with that twang, with that draw. You don't just pick it up. You have to, like, ease into that process.
Yeah.
So, cut you some slack.
All right.
Because I know you probably have a hard time here, especially because you have such a distinct accent. It's not something we hear. We don't hear that often.
So you all out there, you're hearing this.
Give her a break, guys.
When you have, when you're thinking about the content that you're creating, during the intro, I had said something about you're being really proud of
Yes.
the accent.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that, and what led to your starting to create content that is really specific to the way people sound when they talk.
Yeah. It was really about me wanting to get some foundation in my platform. I wanted to do something that not only would be funny and something somebody could relate to, but something that was me and something I could speak a lot about or knew a bunch about. So when I came up with that idea, it was one of the ideas that came to me naturally. I didn't have to think too much about it. I woke up one day and it just came about.
Okay.
And then I put it on the board, and it's a success to say the least. But it was just I don't know. I just wanted to be proud of something, and I wanted something that was me.
Okay. Like Chingy says, right there.
Right there.
Yep.
Right.
What are some other noticeable accents? I notice how differently people say 40 and 44.
Yeah, so I hear that often. A lot of people want me to bring that to the light, or how some people, the draw said 44 and wash versus a wash.
Yes.
That's typically not from my side of St. Louis. That's
Okay.
more of like a southern side of St. Louis City, or a southern St. Louis County, rather.
Oh.
So if you go to a different part of St. Louis, you'll hear that 44 and wash. You'll hear that. It's significantly different. Like in my experience, I didn't hear that a lot growing up.
Okay.
But I do hear that once I get to South City and South County.
And now that you mention it, when I first moved to St. Louis, we lived in an apartment, and the person who owned the building would always say "wash you."
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Horseshoe, yeah. It is. I don't know how that comes about. That is different. It is different. But yeah, like I said, it's still a part of St. Louis, and that just shows how, like you say, different regions in North Korea or Korea have different accents. So it's surprisingly the same with St. Louis.
Well, and I think some of the things that I have heard people as as I have lived here, longer, that I pick up, and I like to ask people whether they've grown up in certain areas, because I hear some of those differences.
Yeah.
Now, our guest in the segment before yours, Mike Milton, he said he's a fan of your content.
Yes. I spoke with him briefly, yeah.
So we also had Neil Gaiman in yesterday, and he talked about being face famous. So are you getting more face famous on the streets?
Neil Gaiman here. I'm sorry to get distracted. I love Neil Gaiman, but yeah, people. So I have very, very high anxiety. So I'm high functioning anxiety, but it's a lot of people do come up to me whenever I step out and I didn't really recognize my face. And I don't think I have a very distinctive face. I think I look like a lot of people in St. Louis. So it's surprising that they can pick me out and they know it's me. So it's a blessing.
So you will be doing a show. This is to wrap up here.
Yes.
And it's happening pretty soon.
Yeah.
Tell us about that and where it's going
So
down.
I have a show coming up, and now it may be at a different location, so I kind of want to be brief about it.
Oh, sure.
So there's a few things with the Luxury Leaf is now having a stand-up special coming up. So they're doing comedy, and I believe that'll be on the 22nd, right after the 420.
Sure.
As well as Fahrenheit having a 420 event. So there's a lot of that going on now that St. Louis is recreational. So that's what's happening in upcoming events, but...
Well, we'll make sure to follow you.
Hopefully.
Brandon
yes.
Wagner, known worldwide as Tru Wag, is a comedian, musician, and viral content creator. Thank you so much for coming by today.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Thank you.
You can follow Tru Wag at TRU_WAG on Instagram and TikTok.
This episode was produced by Maya Norfleet.
Our audio engineer is Aaron Dorr.
Our production intern is Avery Rogers.
This podcast was mixed and edited by Aaron.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Our podcast proudly supports St. Louis artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.